Time for another review, and this one's of Guacamelee, or more specifically, Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. I don't know if there was an original Guacamelee, and Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition is like a special version like Arkham City Armored Edition or such. In fact, I think it is because I think they added in a new level, but this is the only time I've ever played Guacamelee, and let me tell you, it is a fun game. I seem to be branching out into a lot of new and different types of games this year, whether it be with Codename Steam or now this. Basically, this is my first time playing a Metroidvania style game. Pretty much what that means is a sort of non-linear 2D environment that you go through and collect upgrades that will let you get to areas that were previously unreachable. The story of this game is that the evil Carlos Calza has kidnapped El Presidente's daughter, and an agave farmer named Juan has to go save her. However, he gets killed by Calza pretty early on and ends up in the land of the dead, but luckily he finds a mask that transforms him into a powerful luchador. The tone of this game overall is pretty silly. While there are a few serious moments here, mostly it's just kind of a goofy game. I wouldn't place it in my top 5 funniest games of all time list, but there were some moments in the game that got a good laugh out of them. The graphics and music in this game are both really nice, and are very reminiscent of Mexican culture. Kinda reminds me of that older Nick show El Tigre, or that recent animated movie The Book of Life. The game controls pretty well, playing as Juan is pretty good, and it gets even better as you get more and more powers. You get your new powers by breaking these statues called Chuzu statues, which are incredibly reminiscent of the Chozo statues from the 2D Metroid games. The powers can get pretty fun and creative later on, and one thing that's actually kind of interesting is that it almost feels like they were decking out Juan to be a Smash Bros. Fighter. Seriously, they gave him an up A, standing A, side A, and down A move. So yeah, pretty much the exact arsenal for a Smash Bros. Character. Not to mention, there's actually one power that literally lets you run up walls. A unique mechanic about this game that I think I should point out is the living world, dead world mechanic. Basically, you can switch between them pretty easily with the power you get fairly early on. And what happens is that in the living world and the dead world, certain things are different. Some walls and platforms only exist in one of the two realms, as well as some of the enemies only being vulnerable in one of the two realms. This is far from the first time I've seen this kind of mechanic used, but it's still put to good use here. The combat in this game is really fun, letting you combo enemies with your regular punches or your special moves, and the unique thing is that there are a lot of enemies that have shields around them that can only be broken with a specific move. As for the bosses, I will say this, they are really hard to beat. However, most of them are pretty fun at the same time. And as you get later in the game actually gets pretty challenging, but at the same time, it's never that frustrating. It's kind of like Super Meat Boy in a way. It's challenging, but it stays fun and fair at the same time. I can think of about one moment in the game that made me want to rage quit, but other than that, all the challenges were pretty fair. Overall, Guacamelee was a pretty fun game. It had some good controls, a good combat system with some really fun powers, a nice art style, some really good challenge, and a sort of goofy demeanor that just gives the game a little bit of a charm of its own, you know, aside from the art style, obviously. Overall, this is a game I could recommend to anyone who's a fan of Metroidvanias. It's on the Wii U eShop for about $15, and I'm assuming also the PS4, Xbox One, and Steam stores as well. And for only $15, it's a kind of small price to pay for a game this fun. And sure, I will admit, it is a pretty short game, but it still is a blast for most of the way through.